Welcome to the Sense Making in a Changing World podcast, where we explore the kind of thinking we need to navigate a positive way forward. I'm your host, Morag, permaculture educator and global ambassador, filmmaker, eco-villager, food forester, mother, practivist, and all-round lover of thinking, communicating, and acting regeneratively. For a long time, it's been clear to me that to shift trajectory to a thriving one-planet way of life, we first need to shift our thinking. The way we perceive ourselves in relation to nature, self, and community is the core. So this is true now more than ever, and even the way change is changing. Unprecedented changes are happening all around us at a rapid pace. So how do we make sense of this? To know which way to turn, to know what action to focus on, so our efforts are worthwhile and nourishing and are working towards resilience, regeneration, and reconnection. What better way to make sense than to join together with others in open, generative conversation? In this podcast, I'll share conversations with my friends and colleagues, people who inspire and challenge me in their ways of thinking, connecting and acting. These wonderful people are thinkers, doers, activists, scholars, writers, leaders, farmers, educators, people whose work informs permaculture and spark the imagination of what a post-COVID, climate-resilient, socially just future could look like. Their ideas and projects help us to make sense in this changing world, to compost and digest the ideas, and to nurture the fertile ground for new ideas, connections and actions. Together we'll open up conversations in the world of permaculture design, regenerative thinking, community action, earth repair, eco-literacy and much more. I can't wait to share these conversations with you. Over the last 3 decades of personally making sense of the multiple crises we face, I always return to the practical and positive world of permaculture, with its ethics of earth care, people care and fair share. I've seen firsthand how adaptable and responsive it can be in all contexts, from urban to rural, from refugee camps to suburbs. It helps people make sense of what's happening around them and to learn accessible design tools to shape their habitat positively and to contribute to cultural and ecological regeneration. This is why I've created the Permaculture Educators Program, to help thousands of people to become permaculture teachers everywhere through an interactive online dual certificate of permaculture design and teaching. We sponsor global perma-youth programs, women's self-help groups in the Global South, and teens in refugee camps. So anyway, this podcast is sponsored by the Permaculture Education Institute and our Permaculture Educators Program. If you'd like to find more about permaculture, I've created a 4-part permaculture video series to explain what permaculture is and also how you can make it your livelihood as well as your way of life. We'd love to invite you to join our wonderfully inspiring, friendly and supportive global learning community. So I welcome you to share each of these conversations, and I'd also like to suggest you create a local conversation circle to explore the ideas shared in each show and discuss together how this makes sense in your local community and environment. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I meet and speak with you today, the Gubbi Gubbi people, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Well, it's my great pleasure today to be welcoming to the show Cate McQuillen. Cate is the writer and director of Dirt Girl World, Compost Rocks, Get Grubby TV and the Get Grubby musical. Cate's creative playground rambles through screens, mobile devices and stages. She talks to well over 1 million people each week, sharing permaculture ideas and a new story. Her work with Get Grubby TV was awarded the Epsom Storm Award for Best Direction of a Children's TV Show and an Emmy too. Cate says that when she was 5, she got hit in the head with a footy, and she said that explains a lot. She attributes much of who she is to that event, and also to watching stacks of telly, singing 70s song into hairbrushes and growing veggies with her dad in her formative years. She's a creatively driven force behind so many programs that help to generate ideas, motivate, inspire, and for young people to get the bigger picture. So Cate lives up in the Northern Rivers region in New South Wales with her partner Hewey Eustace, and they run together Me Productions. So Cate, for much of what she does, it's about wearing her heart on the sleeve and being led by her values, gathering a great team, greater than herself, she said, and then loving them into doing their best work ever. So I encourage you to check out her shows. I'll put all the links below to all of her different programs, because it's not just these shows she does. She's also created an early childhood curriculum. She has, even during the lockdown, she created a program around maths. You may well have seen a lot of Cate's work. Dirt Girl World has been around for 10 years now and has shows that are being shared around in, I think she said, 126 countries. So it's an extraordinary story, and I'm so delighted to welcome Cate to the show today. She's also joining the Perma Youth at their event, their festival next month. So anyway, I'd like to welcome now to the show Cate McQuillen. It's my absolute pleasure to have her here and to share this conversation with you. So it's a great pleasure today to welcome to the show Cate McQuillen. Now, Cate is kind of one of the most dynamic forces I know in, I'm going to say permaculture education, because essentially that's what you do every day. I mean, you are transforming the way that young people are thinking about the world, helping to share a new story, create positive change, and you're reaching millions every week. And so Cate, for those of you who don't know, Cate is actually the creator of Dirt Girl World, Get Grubby TV, and even a musical on that, and the creative force behind the characters of Dirt Girl, Scrap Boy, and Costa the Garden Gnome. So Cate, what is it? What is the fire in your belly that this whole world emerged from?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, you think to yourself, well, why choose this route to your thoughts about being a storyteller and a change maker? I think for me, it had to do with the fact that where my passion lay was in creativity. I had trained as a teacher. I toured through Victoria with theatre and education troupes, and done musicals and written stuff for kids, and so my background was in that education world. And then, of course, my partner and I, Hewey, debunked the city, moved up to the Northern Rivers in our early 20s, and then went on our own journey as permaculturists. One of the very first things that we did was we went and embroider to the Permaculture Fair. We met a whole lot of people who were definitely inspiring to us. And then, of course, I met their kids, and their kids were just unbelievable. They were so connected, so grounded. It was hard to tell where the earth stopped and their feet and body started. These were kids who just knew things about nature. They taught me things about nature. And I was really excited by that. But then I realized, when I looked around at the content that was there for them, there was nothing that was mirroring their world or reflecting back their feelings or the way that they navigate life. I mean, we had, awesome kids shows like Bananas and Pajamas and Thomas the Tank Engine and Postman Pat, but none of it was grounded in any sort of world that they connected to. And so Huey and I just decided that, there you go. Why don't we create something just for these kids? And of course, 12 years down the track, just for these kids is just for every kid in the world. And I don't really know that we knew that when we started this.
I don't think you can know that, do you? But when you start something, when it comes from such it's a deep innate response to something that you're seeing that there's need. And I think something that comes through everything that you do is this absolute love and an approach that's kind of fun and uplifting, and that invites you to come along and play. I think that's also where a lot of the work around environmental education for children has made a shift in your work, because it's not the kind of abouting and the deeply serious, guilt-ridden kind of education. You're kind of taking people along on this amazing journey and saying, this world is incredible, come and join us. And there's something about that, the love that you instill in it and the attractiveness of it and just the joy. It's what's the word? Contagious, I think.
Yeah, I know, which is a bad word during a pandemic to be an infectious fly. But you know, we can't get around it. You know, the pandemic can't steal that word from us, can it?
Can
it? Look, no, it can't. Thank you so much, but it's you know, I suppose as an adult individual, we as Hewey and I kind of got to a fork in the road. Do you stand on a box and take a political path and find a way to change the world in that direction? And that just held no attraction for us. That kind of lifestyle, that kind of world that you needed to step in to be part of, didn't hold a place for me, really. You know, like I don't mind being outside of it and looking at it and having conversations with it, but the idea of being in that, and I think probably our best estimates of what that was have proven correct over the years, the forward years. It's not a place. It's not a place for us. So the other option is, well, what does resonate with our hearts? And this idea of love and connection has moved from just being something that has been as seeing an alternative way of doing things to being a very mainstream thinking around behavioural change. And so while we wrap everything in this glorious joy and love and heart and characters and fiction and fictional reality and this weird thing that we've created that is so real, that kids believe that these people are genuine and live in Dirk-O-Well. There is some deep thinking behind it, which is that behavioural change happens on a three-pronged approach. It starts with love, and then it moves to knowing, and then from that, as a combined force, action follows naturally. And so it just seems that all of the behavioural scientists are saying this now. They're not erring away. They're not kind of being scared to say it's love that leads. And then there's another really core belief that I think is really coming to the front of the conversation, and that is we are nature. We're not above it. We're not beyond it. We're not in control of it. We are nature. And so I feel like that's what happens with Dirk-O-Well, is that we were able to explore those things, a love-led, knowledge-based, action happening world where we understood where we are in the greater scheme of things, and then hopefully growing a generation of children and families and grandparents and all kinds of people who come around to feel the freedom to feel what they know. We all know this. We know it intrinsically inside of us. We know this. We just give people permission to let rip and just feel it to the max and go for it.
So this theory of change, I think, is so important, because flipping how we perceive change to happen changes how we, as kind of adult educators, enter into that space and create conditions for change. So your theory of change is really important, and also, like you're saying, that we are nature and kind of more of a deep ecology approach. And there's so many different things I can see weaving through this, and the different perspectives on our relationship with one another and with Earth and with society too. So I wonder whether you've had, well, I'm sure you have, you probably every day you get thousands of them, but what are some of the stories that you're hearing from maybe parents or like the children themselves, that you can feel and see how those ideas are impacting them or shaping them or inspiring them?
Look, I'm in a really lucky position. I never have to doubt the value of what we do, because people tell me all day long. You know, they show us. They don't just tell us; they show us kids in their gardens, you know, growing things. Kids during the pandemic making pickles. You know, kids. You know, all the things that we've all seen. You know, they share with us. You know, deep and profound conversations. People who have dealt with post-traumatic stress by raising a family on watching Dirk-O-Well episodes, you know, people, and that's been across the world. we get letters from all kinds of people who just go, I did not know how to cope. So all we did is just did what Dirt Girl does. So from those sorts of deep things to, of course, also families with kids on different levels of the spectrum who only communicate using Dirt Girl language. You know, parents who thought their kids would never speak to them, who one day turn up and all of a sudden the family are living in Dirt Girl world for a little bit. Gives them great hope and faith that they can move to their real world at some stage. From people who, a man in New York who would go out to band practice and he would leave his parrot inside his house watching children's television, came home one night to the parrot singing the Dirt Girl World songs. You know, like, I mean, that's a crazy thing. But on that day-to-day level, absolutely. Schools, centres, kids, families are feeling the confidence. And I just think that that's what we're talking about, that it's the love there and the happiness and the joy, the non-perfect approach to everything, that mistakes are just part of it. You know, if you're a gardener, you get that. You understand with your best intentions, you can plant something and it just doesn't eventuate. And I think that is, that's another thing, that Dirt Girl world is not the perfect world. And I think families feel a framework of confidence in that they can give things a go and try it again and then have another go, move it over here. And we're not just talking, as you said at the beginning, we're not just talking about growing a garden. We're talking about people starting to think about family manifestos and how are their values lived. And if, as a family, sitting down and saying, these are the things we believe in. We want to make a climate safe future. These are the things we believe in. Let's make a manifesto. And then let's live it out. And so when they get to that birthday time and the, you know, plastic packaging world starts knocking on their door, they sit with their manifesto and say, hang on a minute, let's think of another way of doing this. And I think that's where change comes from. When you know your values, when you know what is important to you, I think that there's a lot of rudderless living happening that people are just kind of, you know, going all over the place. And maybe the pandemic kind of found there was a bit more rudder happening even in that swirl of chaos that families have been starting to find. I think I'm seeing that. I'm definitely feeling like people had a pause and that they have continued their commitments that they have made during that pause time because it makes them feel good.
Yeah, I think what you're saying there with the actually being a bit of a rudder and a direction. And I was going to ask you actually about how you'd seen a change during COVID times with the work that you're doing and whether you're finding a whole lot more people coming into that space, because I mean that's what I'm feeling in all the work that I'm connected with. But actually I think before then, like you're saying, you said something earlier about bringing it into mainstream. I think what you've been able to do is to bring this thinking out of it being, you know, like I've been in this so long and I feel these things of like, oh, that's just hippie stuff, or that's just what you do when you retire, or that's just something else over there. But actually at the end of the day in the real world, you know, all those kind of comments, but you've kind of brought it right in and wove it into everyone's daily life. It's not an out there thing. It's a beautiful normal, and it's a normal, as you're saying, touches people at a place that can open up kind of the cracks into it's a portal to another world. It's a portal to a world that you feel that sense of peace and connection and love and ease. And yeah, we can drop down those things of having to be perfect. We can, you know, go and get grubby, you know, that we don't have to sort of be.
And you can also, you can also be random and energized and wild, you know, like, and I think that we've got to remember that's what kids are. You know, it's a really interesting thing, isn't it? Because I think sometimes we think that this permaculture journey as an adult, what's the permaculture journey as a kid? You know, how do we take all that abundant energy and let it run free? I mean, they're doing it. The little kids just do this. It's natural to them. It's us who stick them inside and say, well, hang on a minute, it might be a bit unsafe out there. Don't climb a tree, might fall over. All that sort of be careful kind of language that is breaking down. I'm seeing it all the time. Parents are getting it. They're getting that. You need to live to live.
Yeah.
And so, it is interesting. I mean, we've had this I just wanted to reflect on being on air for 10 years, kids who were 3 or 4 when they started with Dirt Girl, 13 or 14, 15, marching in the climate rallies, writing hundreds of letters. Last year, we got hundreds of letters from predominantly girls saying, thank you, Dirt Girl. You seeded something in me when I was little. And they're not saying that we're not saying she was completely responsible with this, but they have a story of their childhood that supports their adolescence, that will support their parenting if they choose to be parents or not. It'll support their adulthood. And they recognize that. They contacted us and said, would you come to the rally and march with us? Will Dirt Girl come and be with us? And Dirt Girl she was with the little kids, she was with the big kids, and and that's another interesting conversation to be had too, about walking this line of standing shoulder to shoulder with families and kids, and yet not being polarizing and not being too politicized, that Dirt Girl chooses to do things for the good of things, and for the connection with things. It's not about standing in a politicized spot. It's supporting living, and I think that we've been very successful at that. I feel like we have great access to leaders and to decision makers whose families love Dirt Girl World as well. And I feel like we've been very lucky, but it's been a very deliberate thing to make sure that we don't bring any kind of political doctrine into the world at all, because it shouldn't be. It's just good living, and
like you said.
And I live in a community that is very conservative, and I'm loved and love my neighbours and the people who we're with. That was a really good lesson for me, I think, too, that we are here standing living on our home together. It is really important to us to make sure that if there's a battle to be fought, it's just a universal one rather than a political one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have this sense of pressure now in terms of time. And I think, working with young people is something that's really, it's not like, well, once you get through school and go to university, then you kind of find out what we really need to be focusing on. It's like, well, it's now, and we need to be shaping all the way that we're living and acting now based on these universal principles of love and earth care. And I really like the base. I just did a masterclass last night actually on the permaculture ethics, and really reflecting on that. It's that essence of care that's at the very core of permaculture that I think is what attracted me to it in the first instance. And I know that you're about to launch a new program about, maybe you want to talk about that declare to care, because I think it is that declaration of really wanting to be connected and to be in a place where we just show our love for the world, and it not be about this position or that position. It's that this is our one earth, and this is one earth living. This is our place together. And we know that people are struggling differently in different parts of the world, but we're all here together. And Dirt World connects people around the world. I mean, how many countries are you in now?
Yeah, 128. So it's kind of weird, isn't it? At the moment, we're having a lot of conversations with Brazil, because the project has just popped up on a new channel in Brazil. And so you get this sort of flush of people seeing it for the first time. And look, I have no idea why people make adult drama, because you get people watch your show once or twice and that's it. With us, our kids will watch it 100 million times. But B, then they just grow out of it and the next lot grow into it. And so we've got this continual flow of people who are discovering us. And so there's a renewing all the time, like it's, even though we've got this journey of path of moving forward as a legacy and with the kids and families who are growing with us, we just have these new beginning stories all the time. And that it's hard to ignore that and hard to not feel the joy of somebody just realizing that they all of this for the first time. And so it is really nice. The care thing it's really been really important for us. If people only know us from TV, they will know the joy of what it's been like to create a story world and a narrative in an animation form and in a live action form. And we just did a little project during COVID called Go Wild for Maths, where we had families creating maths in nature that the ABC commissioned a short run series of. So a lot of people know us just for that. Other people know us because Dirt Girl's got a band and we've got the live show and the musical. So people may have seen us at events or at festivals and have come up and had a chat and had that experience, which is like no other meet and greet too. I'm so proud of Dirt Girl, Scrap Boy and Costa the Garden Gnome when they're on country or on ground meeting people. The time and love that they give and share is just incredible. And kids will tell them everything about their gardens or their animals or their insects. It's great. And then beyond that, we have this whole other world of education. We've got an early childhood curriculum, and we work with we've done a documentary series with the indigenous rangers across the top of Australia, from Broome to the Great Barrier Reef and up through the Torres Strait, on biosecurity and saying how the rangers are working to care for country. We've worked on Thursday Island to help create with the community a community farm and community garden there, and those ideas have spread. But we've worked with local councils to help them talk about waste. And I didn't really think I would end up being a waste queen, but bringing the key message in to local councils. Our waste program is called Rubbish Handle with Care. And so we put care right up front. And, we've moved to organics handle with care and recycling handle with care or country handle with care. So this care word has been so important to us. And when council started to sign climate declarations, we found that some councils were very happy to be that forthright and to sign a climate declaration, a state of emergency declaration. But some of the other councils didn't sit well with them. But what did sit well with them is a climate declaration rather than a state of emergency. And then even that was sort of a bit confronting for some areas. So we had the conversation about, well, what about with no matter what you do with council, what about if we talk to community about declare your care and just really just keep it really simple? And it's probably just going to be a piece of paper you blue tack up onto the fridge even, so that it feels like a fridge magnet without the magnet. And but the whole idea for the declare your care is, and this goes to your comment about sense of urgency, and how do we move in a rapidly timely way without creating fear or freezing people because they feel like there's nothing they can do, all of those negative things that can sometimes happen. How do we bring this love, but this sense of urgency? And so we decided with Declare Your Care, we would look at the 10 most impactful practices households could do, not just turning the tap off when you brush your teeth, not turning the thermostat down, the really hardcore 10 things, and that we would take each of them and for a month, and that we would really focus on them, and that you would take on some behaviours forever. You would take on forever behaviours. You would declare you care about energy, and this is what this house is doing to make that declaration. And so it's ambitious. It's interesting. We will see how it goes. I feel like with most things that we do, it will start as a seed, and we will get early adopters, and they will go hard and fast and love it, and they will talk to their families and their friends and their communities, and it will flow organically out into the community, because I think we all know it's so hard to harness media to have this conversation with us. And so even though they might tap on us once, or they might, even us, right? Like, you would think that we would have this kind of direct
media. I would have thought you'd have open access.
Yeah, well,
to create a whole show around this.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, isn't it? You get like these little gems where people, we look at it all the time. We just get spurts all over the place. Hardly ever, when we read a fantastic article or a fantastic idea, we hardly ever get a follow-up or let's keep going on this journey. We kind of get these things. And that's part of the trouble. That's part of this. The 3-pillar approach is, if you only show the no or only show the do, without having those 3 parts of having the love at the beginning, and if you don't consistently have this kind of 3-prong approach, then people just nibble on this. They go, oh yeah, oh that's great, we should be doing that next thing. Oh yes, we should be doing this. And it's like, it's just like we keep getting fed these tiny bits all the time, and they keep us knowing that we should be doing something, but do they really help us go, this is what we should be doing?
I wonder, I feel this sense of, anxiousness that people have, thinking, oh, I've got to do this and do that and do that. And that is, I'm just thinking about this while you're speaking, that I think it's coming from that fact that it is just getting the bits rather than that whole picture. Like, when we step back and have that, we can kind of see where it all fits with us, and we've kind of located it within our way of being. And so I think the declaration's brilliant. It's kind of that, it's a space that's a holder for all of these parts to kind of fit within, and each of those bits that you're doing contributes to that whole. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, the idealist in me, right? Because I think, oh, here's a big call, Morag. I think even as environmental groups, as permaculture groups, we work against each other. And I don't think we intentionally work against each other. It's just that we're all trying to carve a notch for, like, a little space for ourselves, because we all want to say something. We all want to make a difference. It's not ego. I'm not saying that we, because of our own egos. I'm just saying that we all work in silos. And when I have tried to say to people, hey, let's get together, all of us organizations, let's get together and umbrella ourselves and have one big mighty push at this, all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. No, not quite, but like all of us with all of this bank of knowledge, all of this wisdom, all of these resources, we're all trying to get the same tiny bit of media. We're all competing for this one tiny moment a week or a month. And while we do that, while we are siloed and separate, it's a struggle, a battle, burnout. People go, why are people interested in picking up 3 bits of rubbish for a month or a week or a day, but not a lifetime? Like, why is it then we're going to plant a tree over here and we're going to do that? So I hope, with Declare Your Care, I just kind of potter on by myself and say, all right, when we get to the energy one, I'm going to look for all of the people who are working in the energies there and put them all in as links, all in as, these are people who are doing this work. But I still feel like the challenge for us is for us to join together and do something big and impressive, put our marketing budgets together for a year. And if we were serious, that's what we would do. So I know it's hard.
I'm all in for that. I had this I think I met you just as the bushfires had come through your place, and I'd been down in East Gippsland with the fires around, and not far from where my parents' house is, and I remember sitting in there thinking, well, nothing's really. The response to this is absolutely ridiculous, and everything that's happening from the type of education we have and the type of response we have to climate change, everything that's going on in our world today is not adequate, is not addressing the need. And so I kind of was thinking, oh gosh, I should bring together all the different, it was women actually that I knew who kind of leading in media or science or whatever field they're in, to come together to explore this and to do something like that, to share media. I don't know, I had a silly name for it then. I was thinking, like, it was the Women's Parliament. Every time something came up there, we had a kind of a response to it, that we would speak out and speak up a different reality, a different way of thinking about that situation we had. But that
different thing was so seductive to people. Like, it's something that resonated with them the minute they heard it. They went, hang on, we are looking for a different voice. And everybody is. They're going to go to everyone, especially right at this moment. We're all going, what? You know, no more, not good enough.
Yeah.
No care, no love. Just, you know, we're all thinking it right at this moment in everybody's houses. Could be nobody who was thinking that this was good enough. And yet we also have, in the back of my heart, I have this absolute sad knowing that this will pass and it will just keep going. Like, this moment will pass. And then what do we have to wait for? The next appalling moment. Like, because they don't know how to get out of it. They don't know how to get out of it. They don't know. They really don't know how to do it differently. And that's the real sad fact. And that you're right, having another voice that just says, hang on a minute, just putting it up there.
And
here's a way that we could do this.
Yeah.
You know? And of course what we're trying to do with a treaty, with a voice of indigenous people to Parliament, you know, First Nations voices, it seems ridiculous that that's even a problem. You know, why is that not just a yes, please come? Why haven't we thought of this before? You know, like, you know, even if they could say that, even if they couldn't say, look, we've ignored this and we didn't really want it or whatever. I don't know. I'm not in their heads. But even when it's offered to them, if they could just say, this is a brilliant idea. Come in, sit at the table. Let's sort this, you know.
Absolutely. And but I want to go back to this idea of bringing together people. How do we
I think it's true. I think, I don't know. You know, we're doing it now, right?
Yeah, okay, all right. We are doing it now.
We're doing it now, right here. We're starting it. You know, like, I suppose is it a council? Is it all of these people who come together? The problem is that everyone's going to have to let go a little bit to get a lot more. And that is interesting. And I don't mean we have to let go. We should be able to do all our own thing, blah, blah, blah. But it's almost like if we were a banking association, right? We would have a person on the board of every bank, and they would pop down and they would sit and put a check on the table, and they'd get a marketing company who would have a manifesto of the banking association, and they'd have one spokesperson. Yeah. And then same thing, every time on ABC News on the drum, there would be the banking association person, and they would be sitting there speaking for all banks, you know. Or all corporations, because they see the business of it, you know, and we don't see the business of who we are, because we have a funny feeling that heart and business are not aligned. Where I go, we are in the business of heart. And, you know, so that whole thing, when I first moved up here, Julie Jackson, a whole gang of women in the back of Lismore had this project called Heart Politics. And, you know, and it was like, this is like, way back in the 25 to 30 years ago kind of vault of my, you know, experiences. Yeah. And I wasn't part of it because, you know, I was down here planting vegetables, but I heard them on the ABC radio, and I always used to think, oh, that's so good. And I think Chris Fisher was in it, and he had a Green Heart song, and they sang it on the radio, you know, and all that sort of stuff. But and I suppose what the problem was that I think maybe those people turned into the knitting nanas, if I'm quite honest about it, you know, so they found their route to where they were going. And I think where we've got to be careful is that we don't get called fringe alternatives or fringe greens, and we don't even get called lefts or rights or politics. I just think we've got to keep thinking it's got nothing to do with politics. It's being a voice for a group of people is being representative, not political. You know, being a voice for the earth and earth care is not political. It's just being representative. And I think that that's the challenge. So I don't know. I think we put it out there. I think we say to everybody who's listening, what do you think? Who else has got a plan? Someone in the world must have thought of this before you and me. You know, like somebody must be someone else must be sitting at home having a little bit of a sip of their cup of tea. You know, I mean, we always think that maybe we should just get Costa and have a constitution.
Well, I think you're right, though. It's something like it is some kind of council. There is some. It's a voice for this myceliating network that exists. Like that is so wide. I mean, I often have these conversations with friends. We talk about, well, where does the power lie within what we're doing in a way, in terms of the possibility for change?
Well, the problem is we don't believe in any of that. This is part of the deal, you know. So I think we have to understand there are two ways that we can live. Well, there's many ways. We can do this where we're doing now, and then we can have this lovely, beautiful world that we all imagine in our hearts and minds over here. But there's a bridge in between. And that bridge to get to here, we can't just think it's going to go and sleep and wake up, you know, and we're all. So I think there's this bridge, and we've got to really understand that bridge. And we've got to understand that with any kind of great change, that, you know, all the feet have to walk across the bridge to get to a new idea or to another thinking. And look, to be honest, we don't want to ditch everything over here. We just want it to feel, you know, we just want, well, I don't know, maybe we do want to ditch everything over here. No, we don't. But, you know, I feel like that understanding that bridge is the trick, because it's saying to ourselves that there is a bit of living in this world that we have to bring into this world to make a bridge. And so it is learning from other groups and associations and teams of people who do things. It is knowing that we would need to more than possibly have one idea, one project, one thing, one voice, one story. It doesn't have to be mine. One core concept that we're trying to work on together. And there needs to be a place for everyone from here, like not just like the tasty makers who get to sit to run to do that. So then all of a sudden what we're kind of trying to do in that group is to say, how does governance work over in this world? How does governance work in our ideal world? Can we reflect governance in this bridged world to sort of say, to demonstrate, and can we as change makers change? Can we do the things we're asking other people to do? Can we deeply and profoundly do the things that need to be done for this to work?
And it's very much too about, you know, often when we're talking about change making, it comes down into sort of, well, what can I do in my place, you know, and it does become, and that's important, and that's the change making happening at that personal level, and having those bigger questions about energy and divestment and all these other conversations. But there's always sort of, you know, like there's more than two faces, but there's sort of like the inward facing, but then the outward facing. And I really feel that what we've just been talking about is working out how we can do more of that outward facing. We're really good within this movement of working at a community level and a grassroots level and sort of spreading it out project by project, person by person. And it's just this, you know, I was just about to say before about this myceliating network of people. Like people are everywhere. Like wherever you go in the world, you'll find people who get this language, who understand the language of permaculture, understand the language of Dirt Girl. You know, there's this shared language that exists that connects us all and is creating positive ripples of change throughout the world. And that when you speak up, it kind of it helps to bring up, like, if you think about this mycelial network, it helps to kind of create the flowering mushrooms there that then kind of spore and create these other things. But you do need that outward facing, that voice that is heard somewhere else beyond the local, that goes, oh, that's what it is, and helps them to shine and flourish and come out of the kind of the underground world into the visible world. And I think this role of something like this group that you're talking about is kind of the light that that mycelium network needs to come alive in that way. And I'm totally up for it. I'm totally up for it.
We won't always agree with everything that the group says, but if you kind of keep it simple, if we're just literally talking about how do we create a climate safe future, not even how we create a new economy or how do people work, or do you know what I mean? Like if we just kept it simple to the immediate issue that we have here, which is keeping the temperature of the earth low enough, for us to all, for our children to have something vaguely representative of the kind of quality of life that we will have the luxury to have enjoyed. And also not just us, every living creature gets to actually continue its path in a healthy and connected and, ecological way. That's a big enough goal. I think one of the things that the Climate Declaration does is they say, if you're a council that declares, your job is then to get the council next door to declare, to encourage them, nice. Right? And then once that happens, to them to encourage state government, and then state government to encourage, so they have this kind of idea. And I think maybe, and I get this, but this is where I've been moved during drought, bushfire and pandemic to think differently. It's where my moments of thinking is. My job now is not to just talk to the urban dwellers or the country elite or whoever it is who already are in our world and who find us easily. It's my job to rock the suburbs. If we do not rock the suburbs, we are forgetting such a huge part of our community because it feels a bit difficult or a bit hard, or we have to do things differently, or we have to use words that aren't even our language to find that bridge. Like there's a whole lot of thinking around that kind of behavior change. And I think maybe too that notion of even with this great network, can we just go out of our comfort zone a little bit and try and grab somebody who's not anywhere near us? Because I know it's easy to think that if we just change, a permaculture feeling of just changing the edge, the edge of where here's your sphere of influence, and you try and get these people here so you kind of go like this and you kind of go like this. I don't know if we're doing enough of that at the moment. But I definitely know we're not doing this.
Yeah.
And that's scary, right? That's scary. But because of the time factor that we've got, it's kind of what's needed. Yeah. And so my plan is to go from this sphere of influence that is close and comforting and gorgeous, because they say, I love you, Dirt Girl. I love you, Cate. They're easy to going out here where people say, what do you want about? What? Sorry, I don't get that lofty language that you use. I want you to use words I understand. And that's a challenge.
So just you talked about Dirt Girl World and Cate. So how's that relationship there? Like, the Dirt Girl World is your voice, isn't it? How does that play out for you, and you having like almost multiple personas to be able to express many different voices or perspectives on what you're trying to say? I think that would be kind of fun.
Yeah. Luckiest girl in the world. Seriously. First off, I just want to say it's a village. It's not just my voice. Of course, Dirt Girl, Scrap Boy and Costa have their own voices because they've lived experience of 10 years of this, so they're obviously, there's their voice. They're not, I'm not like some kind of creepy puppet master, It's almost no, but yeah, definitely. And I think it has to be said that if you want to understand Dirt Girl World, you listen to the lyrics of the songs and you will get everything, because all the magic is in them, all the message is in them, all the joy is in them. Those songs are like gifts for a generation.
Mm.
And so even just singing, like the families that sing them at home, families that quote the lyrics to each other, because they're just unforgettable, those songs, you know. And so we've got that. So we've got the music as part of the village, you know, and of course that comes from Hewey. They're his words and his tunes, and so while I'm sitting here, it's really it's a mistake to think that this is all coming from me. You know, we've got all of these people, every person whose hands and hearts in this are part of this story. But yes, on a day-to-day basis, I'm probably answering emails and doing Facebook and doing Instagram and channeling us all through to families. And yeah, look, it's a joy. I mean, for me, Dirt Girl, Scrap Boy, Costa's hilarious. But the real fun ones for me, of course, is when I be Ken or Grubby, because in the animation, having two insects that are just every word that they say I've written, you know, it's like having this horrible, you know, ambitious grub is part of my, you know, psyche. And she's not horrible, she's delightful, but she's definitely just a corner of my mind of that pushy entrepreneur. You know, and then of course Ken, who is every scared child, every child who doesn't believe they can succeed and yet succeeds every day, you know. It's nice to be able to have no villains in our show. There's no one evil, or there's no villain, there's no one they're scared of, that they all have good and bad, that sometimes they're overly ambitious. Dirt Girl's very competitive, and she has to watch that, you know. So, you know, they all have their foibles, and I think that's what we wanted. I wanted to have a group of characters that were imperfect, and just like every person can see that you can be everything at once. You can be kind and unkind. You can be loving and not loving. You know, that they're not, that you are not an unloving person even when you are feeling unloving. You're not unlovable when you're feeling unlovable. And I think where Get Grubby TV took the animation series was that to this emotional intelligence for kids, because that's part of permaculture too.
Mm. And what I was thinking about that too, these multiple voices that you have, is because as well as speaking that to children, and I guess, you know, their parents and carers who are with them as well, but harking back to what we were talking about before about the possibility of communicating into a world where the language that you or I would speak in, these other characters can speak there. And I think the possibilities of having sort of the multiple personalities, that you can kind of put different messages that come from different voices to actually start to have those conversations, cracks open a whole raft of possibilities that, you know.
Yeah, it allows vulnerability, like it allows real vulnerability, it allows real strength. I've ditched hope this year. It's gone. That word's just gone from our vocabulary and been replaced with courage. The words we choose to use with our families, with our community, are important. They're really important. I think a lot about the words that we use. And I think hope has got, it's for somebody else. I'm up for courage this year, and for the journey forward. That's a much more actionable. You be courageous, you know, like it's a being out there thing. Sort of hopefulness is something that's kind of introspective, and you know, it doesn't feel like, I mean, I get it. I know that for lots of people, hope is a really important word, but for me, I'm all for courage. So I just think that we do have to really choose our words, and we have to be consistent with them. You know, like I often think about those other people in the world who have done very well with their messaging. People like This Is Living, or, you know, slogans that corporate companies have not changed for 50 years. And they have said over and over and over again, and we know them. I'm not going to say them because I don't want to connect with them, right? But we know them. And the lesson they've taught us is you need to say the same thing all the time. That's how people get a message. Keep it simple. Say it all the time. Little things make a big difference. We protect what we love. We are nature. We just say those things over and over and over again, all in different sorts of manifestations. But when Dirkle's out on the ground, when Scrap Boy is out on the ground, they're the words they say to kids, because I think it's something crazy. I think the psychology of hearing something is you have to hear it 27 times before it registers to be sort of something that is relevant to you. Otherwise, as we say, they kind of just wash over us. But, they've worked this stuff out. Behavioural scientists have spent lots of money doing this stuff, and you just go, well, it's just common sense, really, that we need to be consistent with our messaging. And so I feel like that's what all of us, almost even with this group of people, all they need to really do is choose one sentence.
Yeah.
And make sure that sentence is core of what they're doing. And so that when everybody sees what they're doing, we all have the same thought, even if it's for a month. We all go, this month, it's all we are nature. This month, it's all we can make a difference. Whatever it is, but then we all say that. And it might even, that's what it might only need to be to start off with, just a group agreement of this is the term of the year.
I think it sounds absolutely perfect, and the consistency that it has with the message that you're sharing already. It's so simple that you can have the multiple descriptions from all the different groups coming in, and each find their way to connect with that. So
yeah, I didn't know what to do, but anyway.
Oh gosh, well, look, it's been so wonderful talking with you this morning. And I know we're going to be getting together quite soon again with the Perma Youth too, the global Perma Youth, and having a chat. So that's going to be
can't wait.
Fantastic. So also, just can you let people know where they can find out all of those? I know they can find out Dirt Girl World, but you mentioned so many other things like your early childhood curriculum and all those other resources that you have. Where do they find out about all of that?
Well, luckily, we've just done a beautiful upgrade of our dirtgirlworld.com website. So you can go because, of course, social media is failing us all at the moment and for many reasons, not just physically failing us all, but it's also, psychologically failing us all. So we've gone back to, as much as we're doing lots of socials, we're dirtgirlworld.com. You can go there and you can click and link. You can get involved by getting into our newsletter so we can send you stuff directly, so you don't have to worry about whether you're finding it or whether it's in your stream or whether Facebook chooses to serve me to you. You just choose to have us come your way. We're the most unbuggy group of people. We don't spam or scam. We're just like, we're so busy. We're lucky to send out an email, once every 3 months. But when we do, it's a beauty, So the dirtgirlworld.com, we're on Facebook, we're on Insta. We've got a shop called dirtgirlworldshop.com. And the reason I'm only saying that is because we have got the first circular economy doll that you make yourself and stuff with your own socks. Doing things differently. You can be rest assured that anything that we're doing has had the planet at the front of every decision that we've made. So, and I don't suppose I want you to go to the shop to buy stuff. I want you to go to the shop to see how shopping can be different. I suppose that's what I would love people to explore, especially if you're somebody who's out there creating content or, trying to monetize what you're doing. Have a little look at different ways that we can do it, because I think every step we need to take, we need to elevate and go, here we go. We can do this differently.
If anyone's
check out the shop.
Yeah, I was going to say, if anyone's
check out the shop, check out the website.
If anyone's listening this week, you've got an event that's coming up at the end of the week, part of the Sustainable Living Festival. Just want to mention that one.
Yeah, there's two. It's like we've made pickles, we've made sourdough. Now you can make your own do-it-yourself backyard festival, and we'll stream into it. And we've got Mark Seymour and the Hussey Hicks and Jeff Lang and Billy Otto and the Tiny Teeny Stevies and Bunny Racket and a whole heap of amazing speakers. Everyone we love, the plastic free mermaid, the laneway, free food, free laneway from Ballarat, that gang. Lovely Bella, who's got Bella's Challenge. But all these incredible people, 2 hours of mayhem. And you can get your free ticket at slf.org.au, and SLF is Sustainable Living Festival. So slf.org.au. Instead of being in Melbourne with everybody creating mayhem at the festival, we're online asking you to take your device out into your backyard, 5 till 7 p.m. It's a twilight thing. Hang out with your family, tune in to this gig. And it's been great fun, and it's the start of our streaming adventures of this year. So, I'm sorry if there's anything that goes terribly wrong. We're kind of learning on the fly of how to, we can't just do something simple. We've got to do the biggest streaming event. Anyway, but it's just, if you want to warm your heart and if you want to feel like anything is possible, and you want to just sit with people who love life and love nature and love the world as much as you do, then tune in. And you don't have to stay for the whole 2 hours. Drop in and drop out. There'll be something very cool happening all the time. With Costa and Dirt Girl and Scrap Boy on the couch, anything could happen. It's always an adventure for me as well as for everybody else.
Well, we'll be there. The Perma Youth will be there. I think we're doing a little event just before that session, so we can kind of go straight from that. Also at the Sustainable Living Festival, straight across into that. Fantastic. Oh gosh.
Into now. It's called Now, because the theme of Sustainable Living Festival this year is now or never, but or never crossed out.
Yeah.
So it's now. And so we just decided to steal their festival name and make it our event. Because we like it. I think I'll be doing them all year now, ! Yeah. Look, Morag. And I think that, I know we are all a community, and everybody listening here is a community. And I think all of us love and know the work that you do, and just know that, having sat and stood and worked and put your hands and your heart into this space for so long, I'm so appreciative of the wisdom and beauty, guidance, joy that you bring, and your connection to young people. I just want to say from all of us at Dirt Girl World, thank you so much for the glorious work that you do every day. You know, everyone listening loves you and loves the work that you do because it's your life.
Oh, thanks, Kate. That's beautiful. Well, thank you for being my guest today on the podcast. And I'm really excited. Actually, I'm kind of like got that, that edge of excitement when you know that there's something really exciting just about to happen. That's what I feel.
It might take us a while. But organic spread. But we've got to start somewhere. Hey,
we do. Well, until we see you again on the Perma Youth Festival. Well, actually, no, we'll see you this weekend at Now, and then at the Perma Youth.
You won't see me. You won't see me. I'll be behind the scenes pushing a million buttons at once.
Sounds like fun. I hope it goes really well, and it streams beautifully. All right, take care. Thanks a lot, Kate.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye. So that's all for today. Thanks so much for joining us. Head on over to my YouTube channel, the link's below, and then you'll be able to watch this conversation, but also make sure that you subscribe, because that way you'll be notified of all new films that come out, and also the release of the extended tour of Lammas Eco-Village, where we go into the landscape and the common spaces too. And also you'll get notified of all the new interviews and conversations that come out. So thanks again for joining us. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time.